Welcome to Advanced TV Herstory, where hearty discussion of all things TV draws a nifty circle around the women who have made it all happen. In each installment, we endeavor to celebrate, educate, illustrate, or analyze, all in the hopes of reaching listeners with the message that TV and women are very much a part of our lives. And it's okie dokie, it's fine and dandy that we talk about it, at length, in detail, with delight. So find this podcast along the great ones at Libsyn, Google Music, iTunes, and Auto Radio. Engage with us on Twitter. Our handle is @TVHerstory. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams. I hope you enjoy this installment. Welcome, listeners loyal and new. Advanced TV Herstory is now part of Core Temp Arts Network, a veritable one-stop shop for podcasts that talk TV, movies, and pop culture. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play and go to coretemparts.com, CORETEMPARTS.com, to catch up on all the episodes of all those other shows. Listen to them. It's like stuff like TV Ate My Brain and That Pop, This Life. So many podcasts, so little time. But here we're Advanced TV Herstory, and our name says it all. Analyzing and celebrating the women in and of TV, whether they are behind the scenes, popular performers, or women from other fields who just found themselves the subject of major American moments of TV. Let's think for a second about the women who bring us the news. We see them every morning, or at least we do if we watch network TV from 7 to 9 a.m. Women journalists have been around for almost as long as TV has aired the news. As with so many aspects of TV, representation of women has always been sparse, but through the late 70s, that's when it changed. Post-Watergate, as a matter of fact, seemed to be the springboard, and it created a period of time where we had more women journalists emerging in their careers than any other. And that obviously had to do with the number of women who were enrolled and graduating from college. Let's think a minute about the ages and the lengthy careers of some of the most respected names, women's names, that I can think of off the top of my head, and this is just a tiny portion of a list that could and should be much longer of women in TV journalism. Barbara Walters is 81. She's the matriarch. Diane Sawyer is 71. And last year we lost Marlene Sanders, a true pioneer, at the age of 84. And jumping in a bit to the generation that did cut its teeth on Watergate, Andrea Mitchell, who you still see on MSNBC, is 70, as is Judy Woodruff of PBS. Now, you may recall that Woodruff lost her partner on her PBS show last year, Gwen Ifill, who was only 61. Jane Pauley, who we are going to talk about in this installment, is 66, and yet it feels like she's been in our lives forever. Ann Curry is 60 this year. And finally, to fill out your understanding of the fact that we are talking about educated women who are well paid and have millions of fans, Kelly Ripa, true, she's not a journalist, but she is a significant daily TV figure, is 46, and she has 1.2 million followers on Twitter. This installment of Advanced TV Herstory takes a long look at the events that led up to Ann Curry being forced from her role as co-host of The Today Show in 2012, and more importantly, how she said her farewell. And within that context, we're going to rewind the tape 23 years to when Jane Pauley was forced from her role as co-host of The Today Show in 1989. Yes, I guarantee you'll learn something from this comparison. And then finally, we'll cap it off with a lesson from Kelly Ripa about voice, managing the message, and taking risk. This installment isn't so much about what we watched as what we, as women who work in cultures, healthy and toxic, and in most cases for less pay than the men with similar responsibilities, and often get labeled difficult to work with or too old to carry the load, what we have learned from Ann, Jane, and Kelly. Initially, I thought this segment would just be about Ann Curry's departure. Maybe the whole story, an Ann Curry career profile. If you're not a morning TV person or were super busy in 2012, you may have missed this raw moment of TV. Ann Curry, co-host of The Today Show for less than a year, but following a dozen years as the show's news anchor, announcing her own departure from The Today Show.
This is not easy to say, but today is going to be my last morning as a regular co-host of Today. I will still be a part of the Today Show family, but I'm going to have a new title and a new role. And this is not as I expected to ever leave this couch after 15 years, but I am so grateful, especially to all of you who watch, because Matt and I and everyone who sits on this couch, we often call ourselves a family, but you are the real Today Show family. You are why I have ventured into dangerous places and interviewed dictators and jumped off of planes and off of bridges and climbed mountains and landed in the South Pole and convinced the Dalai Lama to come live in our studio. You know, I have loved you and I've wanted to give you the world. And I still do. They're giving me some fancy new titles, which essentially mean that I'm going to get tickets to every big story we want to cover with a terrific team of my choosing. We're going to go all over the world and all over this country at a time when this country and this world needs clarity. We're going to do great work, I hope, and we're being given the chance to do the work that most of us got into journalism to do. And these stories are going to air on all the platforms of NBC News, including here on Today. And after all of these years, I don't even know if I can sleep in anymore. I'm not even sure I can, but I know that whatever time I wake up, I'll be missing you, and I'll be believing in you. I love all of you, especially all of you who are behind the scenes, behind the cameras. I love you guys, Mark and Anthony, all of you guys. Davey, I love all of you. And I love all of our brilliant, brilliant producers. And for all of you who saw me as a groundbreaker, I'm sorry I couldn't carry the ball over the finish line, but man, I did try. And so to all of you who watch, thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me touch yours, and thank you for your tweets and your emails and for your support, and I will keep trying, and I'm so sorry I've turned into a sob sister this morning. Please forgive me, but I hope you'll wish me well.
Oh, boy, do we. I'll start for the group and just say something that we've said 1,000 times. You have the biggest heart in the business.
Yeah, you kind of see I'm wearing it on my sleeve this morning.
Okay. In the weeks preceding Curry's last day, there had been all sorts of media buzz about her future on the Today Show, much of it via the reporting of Brian Stelter, then of the New York Times. And as soon as this segment aired, it became news. It was big news. Or rather, Curry and her emotion became big news. Gayle King, who has experience behind the camera as well as in front of it as part of the Oprah Winfrey empire, was on Sirius XM radio that morning in June 2012 with Andy Cohen and had this to say when she heard it right there as part of the show. Gayle held it together, sort of barely, and was really pretty gracious, having not actually seen the video.
Sorry I couldn't carry the ball over the finish line.
I know. I felt a little ping in my heart when I heard that. But you know what I hear when she's speaking? I hear her really speaking from her heart. Mm-hmm. And that's so rare, Andy, that you see somebody be that candid and be that raw. I'm not looking at the video, but it sounds like she's extremely emotional. And normally we live in an age where people try to hold it together, especially on TV news.
Yes.
You know, where you're supposed to show no emotion whatsoever.
Right.
But I really felt her heart, and I think that when you're speaking from your heart, nobody can fault you for that.
Right.
Imagine what this must have been like for her with all of the speculation and all of the, quote, leaks and all of the stories coming out.
Right.
How difficult that must have been.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. You know, the New York Times has devoted columns and columns and columns on analyzing her behavior, her actions, why it hasn't worked. What is it about it? For the last couple weeks, actually, they've really turned up the volume. And I just thought, and I've got Katie Couric on my show tonight with Kylie Minogue, actually.
Oh, good.
And I'm going to ask Katie about this too. But how do you go on TV every day for 2 hours and do that job, which is more demanding than anyone realizes because you have to be fun and varied and versatile? How do you do that when the New York Times is writing all this stuff? And
something happened here. Ann Curry had done something differently than others, and the whole world watched. Occasional viewers might have just thought it was an inappropriate display of emotion, but regular viewers weren't happy. They pummeled Matt Lauer, her co-host, on Twitter, and social media for months following this segment. What they had seen demonstrated that Matt Lauer was somehow complicit in Ann Curry's departure. What's more, the video of the Today Show was so intriguing that the New York local news station WPIX replayed the tape with a body language expert providing commentary. Now, here's an aside from me. There should be a weekly news show devoted to representation of women on TV, and it would replay clips and headlines of what went on with women that week. No doubt this body language expert with a hardworking agent would be a frequent guest. Okay, I digress. But I wanted to put that out there because I found this WPIX recap intriguing.
Body language expert and Pix 11 contributor Tanya Ryman. And we're looking at this right now. And this was kind of the set yesterday. This was the scene.
Right.
So what should we be looking out for right here, Tanya?
Well, obviously, it's not going to take a body language analyst to show you that she's upset. So what I'm going to do is take some time and point out the cues that she's giving off. And I'm going to talk about Roker and Morales as well as Matt Lauer to discuss what they're feeling at any given moment.
Okay.
So let's watch the clip.
I will never forget the way you handled the story of those American hikers who were held captive in Iran and the ordeal they went through and their families went through, and the interview you did with President Ahmadinejad, where because of your humanity he chose you to tell that he would be releasing those hikers in just a couple of days. It was extraordinary television, and it was your reporting at its best.
Thank you.
And I remember the tsunami. The devastation, and you reunited that family with their daughter.
They were great, weren't they?
They really were.
They were great.
And
great family.
And you being the queen of tweets, you were able to...
I don't even know what to say about that. I was kind of looking for really personal anecdotes,
right.
and what I got was like her work. It was kind of weird for me watching that.
Well, let's break down some of this. Look at her. See how she pulls her leg up. She's closing herself off. She hunched her shoulders. She's touching her hair. If you watch this closely, Matt Lauer is the only one who's kind of leaning back. The other two are mirroring her. They're trying to show her warmth and love and affection. She doesn't look at Matt Lauer while he speaks. And look at that barrier. You see, she put her hair back and then she put an elbow up.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
She's blocking him out at this point. And even this hand, she's blocking him out. So when Al Roker speaks, she's making eye contact with him. When Morales,
Natalie
Morales speaks, she makes eye contact. With Matt Lauer, she doesn't make that much eye contact, so you could tell there was like a disconnect.
Do you think everybody just felt as uncomfortable as this whole scene kind of was? I mean, there was Meredith Vieira, right? She took Meredith Vieira's place. You know, they had an extravaganza for her. Katie Couric, an extravaganza. This woman, 15 years, she got 15 minutes. It was so odd the way it all played out.
Like I said, I don't think it took me to disclose that this one was uncomfortable, nor was everyone on that set uncomfortable.
All right, what about Matt Lauer's kiss? You know, it was kind of like he went in for a kiss to kind of like on the forehead.
And then missed. Yeah, and that was another interesting aspect. There was no reciprocation. Here she hugs Al Roker, Natalie Morales, she gives her hug.
Right.
With Matt Lauer, there's no reciprocation.
It's a difficult thing to kind of watch and see. And as somebody who, watched her struggle through this, because, morning television, it's a very personal thing. And when you put your life out there, you do put your life out there.
Ann Curry's departure is the main lesson of this podcast. She packed a lot into her statement and left those surrounding her on the couch that day pretty much speechless. Curry spoke from the heart. She spoke to her audience, and she left it for them to interpret. NBC had been working up to that moment for nearly a year, and she was not about to spin the situation on their behalf, as others have done in the past, including Jane Pauley back in 1989. Ann Curry's backstory needs to be understood a bit more. In 2013, after years on the media beat for the New York Times, reporter Brian Stelter published the most comprehensive analysis of the recent history of the morning news shows. I heartily recommend his book, which is entitled Top of the Morning, Inside the Cutthroat World of Morning TV, to listeners of this show for a few reasons. First, he presented great detail to support his timelines. According to interviews found on YouTube around the time the book was launched, Stelter explained that he enjoyed nearly unfettered access to talent, crew, and staff at all the major morning news shows, right up until the time of the Ann Curry departure. It's just really well written, as you'd expect from a reporter from one of America's most trusted newspapers. And now you can find Stelter as an on-air talent at CNN. Second, he assembled the timeline of the last few years, but also provided a valuable review of important history of the storied tradition of the Today Show, as well as the development of Good Morning America, and how morning TV became an economic engine and a competitive one for the networks. Third, for the most part, Stelter, as a reporter and author, refrains from asserting too much opinion in the book. He saved that for the interviews he gave when he was out promoting it, but in the book you feel his youth and appreciation for innovation when he described in great length ABC's makeover of Good Morning America. It's a valuable case study of comparative cultures, change management, and assembling talent that can complement each other and not seem competitive. If you have any interest in Ann Curry's career or that of Good Morning America icon Robin Roberts' career, or more importantly your own, I recommend Stelter's book. Intrigue and office politics and the old saws used to keep women from advancing, all courtesy of the morning shows you or your mother or your grandmother may watch. Of Stelter's many interviews you can find on YouTube, the one I found most candid was the one he did with Joy Behar in April 2013. When we think about how often we are told to give a man a chance to succeed, or how often we are told that credentials aren't everything, but that an ambitious woman isn't loyal, just listen to Stelter and Joy Behar describe Curry's first year in this new role. Now remember, by the time she got to the Today Show couch, Curry had already been the NBC Today Show news anchor for 13 years.
Did you have unlimited access to these morning shows? They just let you go in there?
Well, up until Ann Curry was removed from the Today Show, I thought I had pretty good access. I was able to talk to a lot of the people involved. Unfortunately, NBC won't let Ann Curry be interviewed, so I wasn't able to talk to her directly about it, but pretty much everybody else involved.
What is she, in the gulag over there? Today I found out that she has a different hairdo that they want. I'm going to show you a picture in a little while. I mean, and now she can't talk to anybody? What is that?
I think it's very odd. I mean, I understand NBC's concerns, but one of the reasons why there's so much built-up concern about her among her fans is that she hasn't come out and told her side of the story. And I know publishers have been calling her, trying to get her to write a tell-all. I don't know if she's been calling back, but they would love her to write a book.
Well, you know, everybody would love me to write a book about The View, but that doesn't mean I'm going to shoot myself in the foot and do it. You know what I mean? You'll never eat lunch in this town again if you do a book like that, right?
I suppose for Ann that would be a big concern, right? Because then it would be harder for her to jump to another network later.
Yes.
That would be a big concern. But I do think
they won't trust her. If you write a book like that, the other networks will say, oh, we can't trust her. She'll do it to us.
Right. But in some ways, doesn't she deserve a chance to tell what happened?
She does.
Maybe in 20 years or 30 years or whenever it is she wants to retire. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, after Meredith left, Ann Curry took over. And a lot of people didn't want her to be in that position.
Right.
Why not?
Right. I think looking back, I'm not sure she ever got a real chance to co-host. Seems like she was undermined from day one because there were concerns about her style, about her presentation, about the way she whisper talked, about the way she was too emotional with interviewers.
But they knew that before. They knew that before
they did.
Meredith
That's what's
left.
so odd about this.
Why did they give her the job?
I think they took the easy way out. They knew that Meredith Vieira was going to leave.
Yeah.
Meredith Vieira genuinely wanted to leave. I mean, it's funny.
Does.
She actually wanted to quit. Often, they don't say that very often in TV where a host actually wants to just step down. But Meredith Vieira did.
It's understood that TV news people have multi-year contracts, and NBC's Today Show team was no exception. In order to ensure that they could end Curry's contract with the Today Show's balance intact, network executive men orchestrated something called Operation Bambi, which Behar, quite frankly, found appalling.
Ann Curry was there. She's on the bench. She'd been waiting for 15 years for this moment. And so they took the non-decision. They did the easy thing rather than going out and looking for a more creative alternative.
Okay, so after they fired her, why didn't they just let her go to another network then?
I think they wanted, first, they wanted to keep her in the family. They wanted to have the appearance of an intact family. Of course, that's pretty hard.
No one believes it.
Maybe they should have known better. Maybe they shouldn't have tried to fake it. They say they genuinely wanted to keep her. Looking back, though, maybe that was the right play. Just let her leave altogether.
Okay, but inside to say that there was no chemistry. Everybody can see it between Matt and Ann. That was the problem. And you write that Jim Bell which is the Today Show's executive producer at the time, came up with this something called Operation Bambi.
This 3-part plan to renew Matt Lauer's contract, then remove Ann Curry, and then replace her with Savannah Guthrie. And the Bambi name came up when someone said to him, well, wouldn't removing Ann Curry be like killing Bambi?
Why? Why did they say that?
Because she had so many fans, so many people that loved her at home.
And she's like a sort of a delicate sort of
She
pawn.
did have a sort of innocence to her.
And she means well. She's one of these. So tell me, how did you feel when your leg got, whatever?
I actually think the harder she tries, the less sincere she seems. She means it, but the more people don't know. People can't tell that she's sincere.
Yeah. But did Ann want her out? I mean, did Matt want Ann out also?
I think they took that off the table. They said, whatever you do, we're getting rid of Ann. But that's crazy, because if Matt Lauer decided...
On her show, this 2013 show called Current TV, Joy can say almost anything she wants. She can be her unpredictable self. But it's clear from this interview that she wanted to make sure her viewers knew that Ann Curry hadn't been treated well. There was a lot this interview could have focused on. Stelter's book is really comprehensive. But she made sure that his reporting of a toxic, tilted workplace at NBC News was brought to light.
The real truth is we're not the family. You are the family. Right? She was a little bit disingenuous, I think, but also sincere at the same time. It's a very unusual departure.
It's like watching an execution. But some people say she was the executioner because she went in there knowing she was going to cry, knowing she was going to take the show down with her. I mean, I think that's pretty preposterous, but maybe it's possible.
What? Do you blame her, the way they treated her?
I think Bambi? I probably would have teared up on my last day if I were her, too.
But she had every right to be annoyed with them, it sounded like. Tell us about the backstage stabbing that went on with the pictures of her and all the stuff they did.
At one point, there was a blooper reel made up of all of her embarrassing moments on the show. It was never shown on TV, but it was made internally so people could all laugh at it.
And they never showed it to her to have her laugh at herself.
That's what's so striking is after she was removed, that's when she went back and started thinking, what happened? What clues did I miss? It was almost like she was an investigator trying to figure out her own, the crime that was committed to her. She'd wake up early and think, like, why did I not see the signs, the warning signs?
But they have pictures. They had a picture of her in one outfit and, what is it, Big Bird? And the outside.
And they did who wore it best.
Which one wore it best? Yeah. I mean, that's nasty stuff against her.
Especially when someone's already vulnerable. The thing about Ann Curry was she'd been in the job less than a year, so it wasn't necessarily that she could take that. If you've been there 15 years, you might be in on the joke. I don't think Ann Curry was in on the joke.
More often than not, I like Joy Behar, and she didn't disappoint me in this interview. As much as Brian Stelter would have been very happy to talk about the business side of morning news and the competitiveness, Behar wanted to talk about culture. She's likely no stranger to these games. Now, in his book, Stelter told the story of how ABC achieved the new format of Good Morning America and drove it to success with discipline and solid team building. Those making personnel decisions understood that vital on-air chemistry is also influenced by the audience's attention span and the other avenues from which it receives its news. For anyone looking for a real-world example of process improvement, this book builds on that important aspect of the business, and it puts it into the story. Stelter had to put it there because it was essential, because it was this competitive momentum of Good Morning America that drove the Today Show executives to make some pretty rash decisions. Reading it with the benefit of hindsight to Curry's situation, however, made me wonder whether Ann Curry, who many would say did not conform to the Today Show's tradition, she was too this, she was too that, she whispered, was in fact a breakthrough outlier that the new Today Show should have been built on. She had a significant following. She was middle-aged. She wasn't blonde. But that would have required NBC to recognize that the improvement that would be necessary to stay in first place was something other than simply replacing the female talent on the co-host couch. It had worked for them in the past, and it was their go-to tactic. Let's not totally turn the show inside out. Let's just rearrange the deck chairs. So the folks who worried about the Today Show losing traction at first place were men whose livelihoods depended on a rebound. We've come to know that a homogeneous group of white men is slow, if not almost incapable, of asking the question, what will attract more viewers? Their answer to that was to double down on Matt Lauer, their golden boy with a golden salary, who their research showed enjoyed a high favorability with viewers. I am curious to know how those favorability questions were asked. So in the end, Ann Curry was, air quotes, assigned a crew and a budget to go be the next Christiane Amanpour. That hasn't exactly panned out. The Today Show goes on, as does Good Morning America, and the hosts of Good Morning America always seem to look like they're having a good deal of fun. Robin Roberts, who has shared numerous personal challenges with viewers over the years, has immense credibility. We don't celebrate her enough. And Ann Curry. She invoked her own goal to advance the cause of women in journalism and TV into her remarks, and she apologized for not getting further. That's huge. Stelter's book reminds us that this wasn't the first time the Today Show had closed out a contract with a fan favorite, Jane Pauley. Jane Pauley and Ann Curry, they were women. They were women in the daily lives of millions of American women. In 1989, at the age of 39, Pauley was edged off her spot on the couch next to Bryant Gumbel in favor of a younger, blonder Deborah Norville. 39! Let's listen to a man going out of his way to say a lot in order for he, Jane, and all the viewers at home to maybe somehow they can get distracted from the fact that something pretty nasty is going down.
Friday morning. Normally at this time, as I think you know, we would normally go to a close-up, but we're not going to do that this morning. Instead, we're going to vary from our regular format in order to bring you up to date on some family business, some extended family business, mind you, because it applies not only to all of us here, but also you who've been a part of our extended family for so many years. As much as anyone, I guess, you can appreciate this program's long-standing history of tradition and transition, both of which are at issue this morning. As you know, we take a lot of justifiable pride in the fact that no program in the history of television can match today's consistent record, I think, of keeping you interested with the dawn of each day. Unfortunately, of late, too many of our dawns have been clouded with idle and often erroneous speculation, much to the detriment of all of us here. And so before Jane and Deborah have their say on a handoff that I'm sure comes as no surprise, let me put some facts on the record. Yes, Jane Pauley is leaving the Today program sometime at the end of this year or January of next year. No, she is not leaving NBC. Her 13 years of commitment to this program speaks for itself, and she has more than earned the right to focus her life in other directions. In leaving Today, she joins a stellar lineup of alumni, a lineup that includes Dave Garroway and John Chancellor, Frank McGee and Joe Garagiola, Barbara Walters and Tom Brokaw, just to name a few.
I know. Sometimes it's hard to control your gag reflex. But keep this audio in mind the next time you're being transitioned. You do not want to hand the microphone, the power, the messaging to the man. In 1989, Jane Pauley maybe didn't have a choice. She's only 5 years older than Curry, but she came to the couch from a different path. In this audio clip from that same Today Show segment, Pauley cites family priorities, but she doesn't mention her health. In her 2004 memoir, Skywriting, Pauley revealed her diagnosis of bipolar disorder and the toll it had taken on her marriage and family life. So while you're listening to this clip of Pauley, and she had not yet been diagnosed, remember still that this wasn't her choice to leave, and Deborah Norville, who ironically was replaced only 1 year later by Katie Couric, was still a younger, blonder, fresher face. There's no getting around that, and, Pauley holds it together. She puts a really, really happy face on it, but she had to be just hurting inside.
I will have to say that what I am going to miss most is the pleasure I have taken in working with you. I have tried over the years to lead a double life, to join you every morning in your homes while keeping mine very private. Now, I realize anyone who is interested knows how many children I have, who I'm married to, and how old I will be next Tuesday. Still, I hold fast to the illusion that I lead a very private life. But now I would like to speak personally for a moment. A week ago, I celebrated my 13th anniversary on the Today Show. The author, Rabbi Harold Kushner, was a guest. and he congratulated me on my bar mitzvah. Yes, I had come of age. In fact, I've been waxing nostalgic over my career in a way one can only do after it has reached maturity, and it has. So have I. As I said then, I have been here virtually my entire adult life. I was 25 when I arrived. For the last 13 years, the question I'm most often asked has been, what time do you get up? But the question I have most dreaded has been, what are you going to do next? The very idea of next was terrifying. And then one day I realized it wasn't anymore. In fact, I'd begun to find it intriguing to toy with the notion of change. What might be next?
Who doesn't love Jane Pauley? She's currently on CBS Sunday morning show, which is wonderful news, so much more palatable than watching the talking heads on the political shows these days. But America would be well served to have a woman of her caliber and her presence be much more visible. So from Jane Pauley to Ann Curry, you got to wonder whether Ann Curry, when the handwriting started showing up on the wall that her time was short, maybe she watched that 1989 Today Show segment on YouTube and vowed that her last show would be different. Maybe she spent time with Jane in Jane's sunroom, sketching out the tactics, the words, and having a heart-to-heart about what that moment would feel like. We will never know. We can hope that mentoring and relationships are strong in the TV news world, but the fact remains television news is a competitive, highly competitive field. Now, at the top of this segment, I shared a list of icons of American journalism, women living and dead, all 60 and older. And then I added Kelly Ripa, who is 46 to the list. She doesn't even come close to being a journalist, and she did play the role of Haley on All My Children for a dozen years, back when I watched. Ripa is a talk show personality. She's the Merv Griffin of today. She's kind of where Kathy Lee left off. Here's why Kelly Ripa gets a few minutes on this podcast segment. First, she's Gen X. She's outspoken, and she's now been around and at ABC for nearly her whole life as well. Her show delivers ratings because she's found her voice. Parenting, humble roots, and a healthy ego, she isn't Kathy Lee and Hoda. She paid her dues sitting next to Regis Philbin, as Kathy Lee did, but she's also grown up in front of us. Out of loyalty and hard work, she earned the top seat and the lead billing on the show. She made it her priority. So when her co-host, former football player Michael Strahan, signed a contract to join another ABC show, Good Morning America, you can understand why she felt her values and place had been tread upon. I don't watch daytime TV, and I haven't been sick or home with sick kids in a long time. Ripa strikes me as having a healthy ego, which is a necessity in her business. She is probably quite demanding of consistency and the quality of the show. And she's suffered her own fair share of headlines that reveal her to be, quote, difficult to work with. But alas, the double standard of chemistry, difficulty, ego, demands. When the Strahan departure was announced, Ripa took it, well, here's how Inside Edition, the TV news show, aired the item.
I first want to honestly, sincerely thank you for welcoming me back to this show.
Kelly Ripa returns to Live after last week's boycott of the show and took direct aim at her network bosses.
And most importantly, respect in the workplace.
Kelly did not look happy as she left her Upper East Side townhouse this morning on her way to work. You could see she's carrying her friend Anderson Cooper's new book about surviving loss. The rainbow comes and goes. ABC executives were worried that Kelly would have an on-air meltdown like Ann Curry did when she left the Today Show in 2012.
And for all of you who saw me as a groundbreaker, I'm sorry I couldn't carry the ball over the finish line, but man, I did try.
I'm going to be completely honest. I'm fairly certain that there are trained professional snipers with tranquilizer darts in case I drift too far off message.
Kelly fought back tears and explained why she needed to take a break after not being told that co-host Michael Strahan was leaving the show for a full-time gig at Good Morning America.
So what transpired, though, over the course of a few days has been extraordinary. in the sense that it started a much greater conversation about communication and consideration, and most importantly, respect in the workplace.
And she did find the words to congratulate her co-host, even as Strahan stayed off to one side, leaving Kelly her moment in the spotlight. There have been rumors the two do not get along.
I am thrilled for Michael. I am thrilled for you. This is a tremendous opportunity, and I couldn't be, and we couldn't be prouder of you and everything we accomplished together.
Body language expert Tanya Ryman says that Kelly and Michael seemed nervous and uncomfortable.
What we did notice with Kelly is that she's really trying hard to look comfortable. They both are. But you can't look comfortable if you're really feeling the tension. And when she was talking about how she's dedicated 26 years of her life to this show and this network, it's a family, you see she's doing like fist pounding. And you can see there's real anger and frustration there.
Michael Strahan thanked his co-host when he got the chance to talk.
I love you, and I'm so happy you're here because you brought me here.
When Ripa sequestered herself for that short time, she was thinking through her strategy, her messaging. While she could have focused on her power and her place in the show and how hurt she was, she chose instead to talk about values like trust, communication, and respect. With a modest amount of humor, she pushed back to producers any notion that she would become emotional. Remember, people in 2016, she was a 45-year-old woman and the show's lead. At what age or stage will the network take Ripa seriously? And I'm sure you noticed how within the Inside Edition piece, whoever wrote that piece reminded viewers that there's alleged tension between Ripa and Strahan. Two outsized egos in the prime of their careers, both having landed the gig out of sheer luck. If there was no tension, it would probably be a boring show. But as I see it, Kelly Ripa claimed the space to announce Strahan's transition to the audience, even though it had already pretty much become public. Strahan's move to Good Morning America was tantamount to getting called up to the big leagues. Yes, absolutely, good for him. Her issue, deservedly so, however, was that having led the show for 5 years and serving as sidekick to Regis Philbin for a decade prior, that the network engineered major changes to her show without her input and without her consideration. I can't come up with a male talk or news figure of that tenure and that popularity who would have reacted any differently. This is her life, her livelihood, her reputation. All in all, she could have been much more direct in calling out the network's leaving her out of the loop. And with any luck, they'll pay a price when her contract comes up for renewal. These three instances, call them two apples and an orange, as they are not all the same, take into account how power is positioned when an unfair decision gets spun or unspun for public consumption. Power factors into almost every detail of the videos. Each one of these is available on YouTube, and I encourage you, if you've got the interest, take the time to watch. Jane Pauley, in a sense, just a player in a highly scripted series of messages that day in 1989, wore a passive brown suit jacket. Just another day at the office on a Friday, though for the record, the announcement was made in October and her actual last day was in December. She may have worn other colors when she was off the camera, but her demeanor on camera in October was practically anesthetized. Ann Curry wore bright red. Energy, power. She made her space on the couch all about her. And when Kelly reappeared on her show, she too wore bright red. Sleeveless to show off her sculpted biceps. Inside Edition noted Strahan was off camera for Kelly's remarks, and I'm guessing that this was no accident. She needed to stand and own her monologue. Well, there you have it. This is the wisdom of womanhood that either you're fortunate to get through friendships and networks or you don't. Please recommend this installment to any friend who is looking for some dry land, perhaps in the midst of office turmoil or politics, trying to climb the ladder and worried that someone's about to step on her hand. This is perspective, and we know so many who are going through difficult times. If morning shows on TV are your thing, then I endorse Brian Stelter's 2013 book, Top of the Morning, Inside the Cutthroat World of Morning TV. The title says it all, and it's not playing around. Audio clips from Ann Curry and Jane Pauley's appearances on The Today Show are all found on YouTube, as is the Gayle King appearance on Andy Cohen's Sirius XM radio talk show, and WPIX's breakdown of Curry's last day, and the Inside Edition piece on Kelly Ripa. It's all out there, but sometimes lessons need to get stitched together to make the meaning something larger. For that, I am grateful to all these three women for their diligence, professionalism, and self-confidence. May they enjoy good health and great opportunities that keep them in our TV worlds for a long time to come. Advanced TV Herstory audio is made better by David Brown, the audio technician extraordinaire. Please rate or provide feedback about this segment or others at iTunes, Libsyn, or the podcast's website, www.tvherstory.com. Find us on Twitter at TV Herstory, and of course the inbox is always tended at advancedtvherstory@gmail.com. Go to Core Temp Arts Network, yes, coretemparts.com, if you're looking for shows like this but a bit different, like in that they are more likely to discuss TV that's current and fresh, more than a dozen to choose from, all the work of creative independent producers. Thanks for listening to this installment of Advanced TV Herstory. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams.
Thank you for listening to the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Core Temp Arts shows, visit coretemparts.com.